Welcome everybody. It's episode 306 of the Severe MMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, aka the Score Lord, the Pod God, the Legend, as many people call me. Joined today by the Ronald McDonald of Irish MMA Media, Graeme McDonald, as we talk about a pretty interesting night last night in the world of MMA. Actually, this is a special Saturday podcast because there's no UFC, so we decided to get it over and done with. Head out the back, it's sunny here, maybe have a few cans of, or bottles of Desperado or something like that, a few bottles of Corona maybe even, and take the weekend off and get it out early for all your Patreon listeners, and obviously the normal, non-paid listeners as well, the Vickers, the world, our least favourite listeners. Actually, if you want to sign up to Patreon, patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast is a place to go now to help us keep the lights on. I know there isn't many people in Irish MMA covering sport anymore, to be honest. So if you want to help us keep going, that's where you go, and do that. There's loads of content over the last week, and it will be over the next week as well. And another important thing as well to say is about our sponsors this week, Manscaped, who always bring us the podcast, so everyone knows about. But there's a very important message coming from this week, and everyone knows that Manscaped are available in the US, Canada, UK, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, and all of the EU. We have an exclusive offer for to use the code SevereMMA to get 20% off and free shipping, so you can join the movement with 2 million other men worldwide. But did you know this? One guy every hour every day is diagnosed with testicular cancer. So this is a reminder to all of the men listening to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Manscaped, in addition to providing the right tools and solutions for the safe, easy manscaping, has partnered with the Testicular Cancer Society to spread awareness for men's health and early cancer detection. Together, TCS and Manscaped are committed to raising awareness for the most common form of cancer in men aged 15 to 35, which myself and Graeme are still barely gripping to, and giving support to fighters, survivors and families impacted by testicular cancer as part of the We Save Balls initiative. While you're down there cleaning up your sack, why not go ahead and give them a little investigation for lumps, changes, sizes, or any pain. I think we all agree it's pretty fun playing with your balls anyway. Manscaped recommends you check yourself once a month. If you do feel any lumps or swelling, give your doctor a call immediately. In addition to checking yourself regularly, why don't you make sure your sack is looking fresh and clean with the Manscape Package 3.0. Inside the perfect package, you get the electric lawnmower, the Lawnmower 3.0. This waterproof trimmer features skin-safe technology. Hold on, I have it here. Where is it? Here we are. Hold on. Can you hear it? Can you hear it? That's it. And it's absolutely brilliant. The light is on it and everything like that as well. And all liquid formulations used only the best ingredients as well. You have the crop preserver, the anti-chafing deodorant, the crop reviver, the spray-on ball toner, and the Perfect Package 3.0 also includes anti-chafing performance boxers that are absolutely fantastic. I know a lot of the lads over in our Patreon group absolutely love them. So join the Manscaped movement and start taking care of your balls today. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code SevereMMA at Manscaped.com. Always use the right tools for the job. That's 20% off. What the? Is that your Manscaped, or is your microphone just broken?
No, it's my Manscaped.
That's it. So if you
just do a quick trim here, Sean, while you're waffling on.
I'll do one as well here. let's do battling trimmers. Oh, okay. So I used 20%.
You're easily amused, Sean.
I've lost it. Use Severe MMA at checkout and get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you. Alright, so I nearly died coughing there, so I had to pause the podcast for a second, but here we go again. Right, Graeme, there's lots of news and stuff this week, and we'll obviously get into Bellator in a second, but the first thing I want to bring up, because I still haven't got my head totally around it, right, and maybe you can explain it to me, maybe you have a better explanation of it than me. Leon Edwards is fighting Nathan Diaz, and now, if you're on Patreon, I've already done like 2 kind of reaction podcasts to this, and we were over on Twitter Spaces the other day talking about it as well. I still don't understand how this fight is happening, why this fight is happening. Don't get me wrong, and this is the most important part as well. I like this fight. I think it'll be a fun fight. So once we get to the fight, or even like in a week's time, I can just start looking forward to the fight. But at the moment, just while like the fight is new and while it's been just after being announced, I'm still on the like, how did we get here? Kind of area. How did we get here, Graeme? Have you any idea why they're making this fight?
Well, I suppose Leon Edwards been saying for years that he wants to fight somebody like, ahead of him in the rankings. He's been fighting down in the rankings, and obviously that hasn't really happened, and he's been kind of vocal about that for Leon Edwards, who isn't a very vocal guy. And maybe he's thinking, if I'm not going to be able to fight somebody ahead of me, I'm not just going to fight somebody a few places below me. I'll fight like a fun fight, a big fight. Diaz is a big name, big pay-per-view numbers. Maybe he's been, a lot of fighters are admirers of the Diaz brothers. Like they like their style, they like their fighting style, like they're kind of don't give a shit attitude and stuff. So, when Leon Edwards was coming up, he always kind of would like to have tested himself against Nate Diaz, because, if somebody else was in Nate Diaz's position and he wasn't Nate Diaz, then I don't think Leon Edwards would be taking this fight. So I think it's just got to do with the name, the kind of funness of the fight. It must be what enticed Edwards into this without a bigger fight being available, like a higher ranked fight being available.
It's when I asked you that question, when I ask everyone that question, it's usually the other way around. It's usually like, why did Nate Diaz not take this fight? I find it unusual that you kind of went with the why did Leon Edwards take this fight? Of course, Leon Edwards is going to take the fight. I love the phrase.
I don't know.
No, what you know?
He's been talking about fighting, like trying to fight somebody ahead of him for years now. He's been
that's
basically
true.
his only thing he says in interviews. Like,
yeah, it is true. Like Leon Edwards is notoriously like unthoughtful person about the matchmaking, but like I love this phrase as well. It's manna from heaven for Leon Edwards. It literally is. Like when a Nate Diaz fight puts itself in front of you, and you're a top 5 welterweight or top 6 welterweight or whatever he is, and there's a title fight coming up. That's perfect. Like, this is for Leon Edwards. We'll get into Nate Diaz in a second, but for Leon Edwards, right? So they announced last night as well that Wonderboy is fighting Gilbert Burton. So you take the two of them away. You could have fought either of them, right? You could have fought Colby Covington, and a win over any of those 3 people probably, gets you a title shot. It probably does get you a title shot. But instead, he has a fight with Nate Diaz to get him a title shot, which is a much bigger fight. And to me and everyone I've spoken to, it's a much easier fight as well from Leon Edwards. So it's literally manna from heaven from Leon Edwards. It's the best thing he could do. No, Leon Edwards in the past, as you mentioned there, and it's a great point, he is like, I'm not fighting Wonderboy, I'm not fighting this and this and this, because he's like, I'll only fight someone above me in the rankings, even though nobody cares about the rankings. And we all know a win over Wonderboy is big and gets you towards the title shot. A win over whoever it might be around there. And the same goes, for Diaz now, just because it'll be a bigger fight from a quality point of view, maybe not, but from the Edwards point of view, brilliant. Why did Diaz take the fight? Have you any idea? Like, Diaz doesn't care about rankings. He doesn't care about title shots. Like, if Nate Diaz wanted a title shot right now, I think he could probably get it, because if he called out Usman would be like, yeah, let's do it, let's fight, because he's already shown that. He's fighting Masvidal in a fight absolutely nobody wants to see, because he thinks it'll draw more, because the last one drew more. Now it might, because it's such a great card and it's all with fans back, and also there's something more special about it. But I think on its own, it's not a huge draw. But anyway, have you any idea why Nate Diaz is taking the fight?
I think Nate's trying to get himself into the the reckoning at the top of the division, and he sees if he beats Edwards, he's kind of there. He's probably looking at Masvidal. If Masvidal wins, that could be a nice rematch there. I know it wasn't going his way, but it ended controversially, so people will probably want to see that again. I don't see like an Usman fight going very well for Diaz, but these guys back themselves against anybody. They're not shy in confidence. A lot of MMA fighters. So for Diaz, he's probably getting paid well. That's always a sticking point with Diaz. So he's probably getting paid well for this fight, and he sees it as a chance to kind of put his name back in title contention. So that's why he's taking it. I think.
Is his name not already there? Like, are he? Diaz is smarter than that.
Well, not really. Like, is it there? Like, is there? Yeah, he can, but like a win over Edwards puts him there, and he probably thinks, I'll go out and whoop this guy. The Diaz attitude, and a lot of top fighters, like they have ridiculously strong belief in themselves. Like, so he probably thinks, I'll just go out there, beat Edwards, and then we're looking at the Masvidal rematch or some kind of upper echelon of the rankings fight to put him in title contention. So that's probably what he's thinking, and he's probably thinking he needs to get paid as well.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one, and it's a 5-round co-main event as well, which has obviously never been done outside of title fights in the UFC before. So, it's a historic fight, I suppose, and a very interesting fight, a good fight. Maybe I'll get off my reasoning for why it's actually happening, because I don't know. I feel like my only reasoning that I kind of came up with is kind of what you said there, that Nate Diaz fancies himself, you know, that he thinks he can beat Leon Edwards, and he thinks it's an easy matchup for him style wise. I couldn't disagree more, to be honest. I haven't watched a good bit of Leon Edwards recently, coming up to the Bilal Muhammad fight. I think I was talking to Jake Smith about it as well, and a few people actually said it to him, and I could everyone I kind of spoke to had said it about Leon Edwards' elbows when he comes in, and that they're just gonna cut up Diaz. Like, doctor stoppage is probably the call in this fight. It's look, Leon does kind of at times he's willing to exchange with pressure fighters, but Diaz is. He is a pressure fighter, and we will kind of look at more Nick as a pressure fighter, but I think Nate Diaz is more like, a little bit like a McGregor as well, who is like a pressure kind of counter fighter, but will throw more shots than that, if you get me. Like, and Leon Edwards will come forward against someone like that, so I might give Nate little bits of openings, and maybe Nate is thinking I can get this to the ground and I can use my jiu-jitsu and submit him or something like that. I don't know what Nate is thinking, to be honest, but it's an interesting one. I'm glad the fight is happening, and I'm definitely not complaining about it. I'm just trying to find the logic around it, but yeah, it looks like it's happening anyway, and it should be fun on the same card as Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. Well, we'll talk about one or two other fights as well before we get into Bellator. What do you think of that Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler fight? I know we haven't talked too much about it on the podcast, but that's kind of with McGregor now, and that fight as well, McGregor and Poirier is not 100% official, I don't think, but Ariel reported last night that Poirier has signed on the dotted line and that McGregor was always in, basically. So that fight is done. When Ariel won, he says it's done, it's done. So at the top of that division, look, McGregor and Poirier wanted to fight. Are you happy with Oliveira versus Chandler, or would you have done something else?
Well, yeah, like, it makes sense. We kind of said, like, it's kind of up to Poirier what he wanted to do straight after the fight, and he seemed to want to have the rematch, and it makes sense financially and, like, star power wise and celebrity and money wise and everything. So it's kind of the logical decision. And if he goes in and wins, which I'm sure he thinks he can and thinks he will, then he's in the same position as he was before, and he's a lot richer and, you know, has more leverage. So I think from Poirier's point of view, it seems like he could have had the title shot, but he didn't. He decided that he wanted the trilogy fight with McGregor instead. So it makes sense to make the Oliveira Chandler fight in that circumstance. Yeah,
I think for Poirier, it's smart. You know, it's definitely a smart move, because we've seen people before, even, you know, I think Masvidal is a big example of who've made huge missteps and gone missing for a year. And okay, he's getting the title shot now again, but I think he could have done better with his 15 seconds of fame, and it's going to be gone after this. I would predict, but Poirier has done the right thing, because I'm sure. Look, when you're a fighter and you come up, and like in Poirier's era, maybe it's a little bit different now, but you're aiming for that title. You know, Dustin Poirier wanted to be a featherweight champion. He wanted to be a lightweight champion. That has been his aim in the UFC for years and years and years. You know, people don't grow up in his era wanting to fight Conor McGregor. Now, maybe they do now in the last 2 or 3 years, because that's the big payday and bigger than any title shot. McGregor's talking about bringing in his own belt and all, which is another argument, I suppose. But so it must take a lot, you know, just mentally. Now, financially a different story, but mentally, to kind of give that up. Everyone knew he could have got it if he wanted it, to take the McGregor fight. But logically, it's the right thing to do, because if you fancy yourself to beat McGregor, which he absolutely should, you know, he made mincemeat of Conor McGregor in more ways than one in the last fight. So why wouldn't he fancy himself to come in and do it in this fight? And then you can have the title shot anyway. And you can have it against, you know, an Oliveira or a Chandler, who are, you know, for both of them, I think for Dustin Poirier, are pretty favourable matchups. So it's a real win-win for Poirier. He gets the huge money, he gets the McGregor fight, and if he wins that, he gets the title fight as well. So it's logically for him, it's brilliant. But look, for McGregor, is this logically the best thing to do? I don't know. I think, you know, he spoke after the last fight about time in the cage and about, you know, he needs to get back to his best and all like that. Is going straight back in against the best active lightweight in the world probably at the moment the right thing to do? I would say probably not, to be honest. I think he probably should have taken a step back, taken another fight, and then taken the Poirier fight maybe. But I'm always cautious with fighters, and, you know, the biggest and best fighters in the world. I think that's the thing that MMA needs to do better. But however, this is what we have. And I think McGregor has a lot to prove in this fight, you know. He has a lot to prove in this fight. He always talks during all his fights and all the way up that he has to prove things to people. And, you know, can he beat can he beat the black belt? Can he beat the wrestler? Can he beat that, this and this and this? And now it's, can he beat a guy who destroyed him in the last fight, you know, who tactically, you know, made people question him and his team and his whole setup, you know, and that is big for Conor McGregor. We know down through the years he's talking about loyalty to him, you know, his ability and his team and everything like that, and that was all questioned after this fight. And I'm sure this for him is he's hearing that and he's thinking, right, I need to come back and I need to beat Dustin Poirier to prove that I'm still the man. And you know, people are calling him soft and people saying he's in silk sheets and everything like that. I'm sure McGregor hears all that, and if he doesn't hear all that, and if he doesn't, you know, use that as motivation, and if he doesn't come back to his best, it's a whole different argument then. So an absolutely huge fight for the biggest star in the history of the sport, an absolutely huge fight for Dustin Poirier, who, you know, has that title shot on the line, who has maybe his legacy on the line. If he comes out on top of the trilogy with McGregor, that's what he will be remembered for, and that to go on to being a champion, you know, like say like a Bisping as well, gets that title shot and he wins it and it changes his whole career. If Poirier wins this fight, you know, the first fight changed his career anyway, but because of the second fight, it's a new kind of addition to the middle of it. So if he wins this fight, that changed his career, wins the title fight. It puts Poirier from a guy who was a very, very good contender and an excellent fighter to like a Hall of Famer, if you want to put it that way. So it's a huge fight here for Poirier, a huge fight for McGregor, and I'm looking forward to it. And Chandler versus Oliveira as well. It's like a very good tactical matchup. Chandler beat Dan Hooker in his last fight. Obviously, a bigger kind of guy, a longer guy. He came inside and was able to land hard on him. And that's what I'm sure what he'll be able to do, or trying to do again against Charles Oliveira, who looks fantastic recently. His striking has improved so much. We know his ground game, probably the most devastating ground game in the history of the UFC. I believe he's the most submissions in the history of the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe he's up there with Damian Maia or someone like that anyway. But you know, fantastic matchup, and I can't wait to see how it plays out here over the next year or so. But anyway, we talked enough about the matchmaking and all of that. We have another few topics as well, but let's get into the fights from last night. Graeme, Bellator 255, on which I picked, and it's not part of our FightPicks league. We've only done UFC for that. I picked 11 out of 11 fights right on the FightPicks app for this. So if you haven't downloaded the FightPicks app yet, please do it. Get involved for next week's UFC card, which we will be previewing in a while. Go over to fightpicks.com or go to your Android Play Store or iOS Play Store and download the app. Look, search FightPicks. You'll see the blue and white app. Download that. Sign up. It's free to sign up. You can sign up for the premium one as well, and I would encourage you to do that because it's absolutely fantastic. It gives you extra info and stuff. But go into Join League, search for Severe MMA, you'll see it there anyway, and join our league and get involved. We just started, I think a new global season just started last week, so you're not too far behind. I think I'm 6th in our league, so I'm walking away with it. I think I'm like 11th in the global league now or something, or maybe not that high, but after my 11 out of 11 last night, I'm doing pretty well. So yeah, download that app and see how we get going. This Bellator card, Graeme, Patricio Pitbull, Emmanuel Sanchez. I suppose, looking at this fight, it's hard not to say that Patricio Pitbull is the best featherweight in the world. To be honest, like it's very hard not to say that. Sanchez is very, very good, a really good fighter. Obviously, you have the likes of Volkanovski versus and Ortega and Max Holloway and others around there at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's easy to. It's not very hard to say he's not the best featherweight. You can make loads of arguments why he's not.
Do you think so? Why do you think he's not?
Yeah, just the level of competition, the style matchup against Max Holloway could be difficult for him as well. Volkanovski, we haven't seen them fights. We don't know. Maybe he could go in there and, do what he does, but until we see him kind of against the very, very top guys in the world, we're not going to know that.
He knocked down Michael Chandler, who's fighting for the UFC lightweight title in not too far distant future. You know, he's beaten some good guys, beaten Juan Archuleta, Pedro Carvalho, Emmanuel Sanchez a couple of times. Okay, he's not fighting the level at the very top of the UFC, but I think you can see his quality. You know, his punching power, his submissions.
You know, and he was beating Ben Henderson. You know, Ben Henderson's not like anywhere near what he was when he was a champion in the UFC or WEC, but he was, you know, doing well, winning that fight until he kind of, you know, succumbed to a leg injury. I know, like, you know, you got to give credit to Benson Henderson or whatever, but, you know, he definitely was winning that fight until he lost as well. So, like, you definitely could make arguments for him being the best, you know, coming out and beating Michael Chandler or whatever. But I just think, you know, Max Holloway, Volkanovski, these guys are fighting a different level of competition. You know, the odd fight, maybe, you know, he gets a Chandler or a Henderson, but then he's back down to kind of the guys he's already fought. So you could definitely make an argument that he is the best or one of the best, but you could easily make an argument that he isn't the best as well.
Yeah, look, I suppose that's an argument for another day, but this fight with Emmanuel Sanchez, look, it only went, 3:35 into round one, but you can see exactly what sort of fighter he is by this fight. You know, if you've never seen Patricio Pitbull fight before, this is it. He's accurate, powerful, and a finisher. That's exactly what he is. He's if you look at Pitbull, he doesn't have like the best footwork in the world. He isn't maybe the most dynamic fighter in the world, but what he is an absolute assassin. And you know, and when I say he's not that dynamic or not that fast, I'm sure he could be if he wanted to be, if he decided to fight in that way. But he decides to fight in like this ninja sort of way. It's like, it's gonna be pure and utter darkness, and I'm going to fall and knock you and fucking slit your throat, basically, which is what he did in the end with the guillotine. He is just one of the most accurate fighters I've seen ever in the world of MMA, to be honest. He can just pick the right shot at the right time better than most people. Like it reminds me, not exactly like in McGregor, but McGregor early days was very good at that. There's very few guys who are so good at that, at picking it at the right time. And like some guy, like if you watch Dimitri Shanz, I watched him on the rewatch this week, he can pick things to do at the right time. Or like a Habib, whether it's wrestling or whether it's, you know, jumping in to wrestle at the right time or jumping on the back at the right time or moving at the right time. Not a lot of people can do that brilliantly, but there's like even Francis Ngannou at the weekend kind of did that very well against Stipe and made it very hard for him. But to be a person who throws that shot that you want to be accurate maybe once every 3 minutes, and for it to still be accurate, is a different sort of thing that we don't see in MMA that much. You know, Yoel Romero tried to do that throughout his whole career, and it worked very well throughout the end of his career, and it worked very well for him for a while. And, you know, he kind of succumbed to that inability for a few fights as well. But Pitbull is so good at it. He just like came over the top with that right hand, lands that left hook after it. It's just money every time. And it's the same with the submissions as well. He jumps on those guillotines. Like, sometimes you're watching fights and, you know, as just an outside observer, you're looking at it and like, whoever the person is, like, don't jump on that guillotine. You know, you're just going to end up on the bottom. He's going to pull out his head. But whenever Pitbull goes for it, you just know it's over, don't you? Like, you just know that he's going to finish that. And especially after he has someone like Sanchez hurt and finish like that. He's
you know, a lot of guys, when they have somebody rocked like that, they wouldn't, you know, jump a guillotine where if they don't get it, they're on the bottom, especially an arm in guillotine. So, you know, he obviously has a lot of belief in his all-round game. And, you know, as you said, once he sunk it in, it was kind of inevitable. And I think, you know, it's a brilliant performance. It's you know, Emmanuel Sanchez, I believe, had never been finished, and he made it look easy. You know, beat him on the feet and got that guillotine, as you mentioned. So like he's going, like, he's doing everything he needs to be doing. You know, but it's just the question will always be there, like it was with Michael Chandler. You know, but like, can you do it in the UFC? The same with Eddie Alvarez for years. Like, you know, until you you know, fight those guys in the UFC, people will always have that question, and there'll always be a doubt around you, no matter what you do to, you know, other opponents. Like Emmanuel Sanchez, for a hardcore fan, is like, a very good fighter. Obviously, we've seen him in there with Pitbull before, and he should show what he could do. But the big names of like even a Gaethje, a Poirier, a McGregor, these guys in the lightweight division, and then like in the featherweight division, the Holloways, the Volkanovskis, like I'd love to see it. Like, it's going to be hard for him to get out of there. Bellator, like he's been there a long time. He's one of their biggest guys, if not their biggest guy at the moment. So they're not going to let him go easy. We've seen him with other guys in the past, but for the fans and for like how many exciting fights we could see and how many, questions we could have answered, it'd be absolutely brilliant to see him in the UFC. But, do you
think AJ McKee answered those questions? Some of them?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, this AJ McKee fight, AJ McKee's like saying all the stuff about, bring her leash, you're going to bring it to the pound and all. I don't think Pitbull, even if he understood, he just didn't even
he didn't care.
acknowledge it. I think AJ McKee was like, they walked to the stare down, and he was like, I just said that, maybe I should be careful here for a second, and then I know he doesn't care. Yeah, but I think AJ McKee's what an exciting prospect he's been for years. He's really come into his own recently. Some really flowy performances. Like, really looks like he's putting it together. And obviously, we just talked about how Pitbull can put it together. So this is it's a brilliant fight. Like, if AJ McKee can win this, like, then he's like, he's proven everything that people hoped for him when he was coming up. And like, I don't know how this fight's going to go.
It's what a
really
fight,
interesting
though.
one.
What a fight! Like, I think this is everything you said there about maybe testing himself against the UFC level and the best guys there. Like, there isn't a prospect in the UFC better than AJ McKee. Okay, maybe Volkanovski's better than, maybe Max Holloway is better than him, but you'll struggle to find names after that are better than AJ McKee. This guy is legit. What is he, 17, 18 and all, something like that? He is absolutely brilliant, and whoever wins this fight is one of the best featherweights in the world. Maybe you can say Max, maybe you can say Volkanovski, but I don't think after that there's an argument for anyone nearly. These guys, this is a fight. This is a UFC title level fight. This is a top 5 UFC level fight. It's an absolutely brilliant fight, and it's kind of like a juxtaposition between the two styles as well, because McKee is more of he's a finisher as well, as we saw with the McKee that he landed the last day, which people have to be careful of if he's jumping to the ground on submissions and things as well. But he's a more dynamic striker, a dynamic fighter from the outside, and that's not necessarily better or worse. It's fantastic in his way, but they're very different fighters. And I'm looking forward to that fight coming up. It's when I think it's happening in June-ish, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know exactly, but it's a few months away anyway, so we'll talk about it more when it comes up. But
it's great to see a tournament actually come together. Yeah. Mini tournament. Yeah. Usually it's a recipe for disaster, and but we ended up with a brilliant final. You couldn't have planned it better. This is one of the biggest fights I can remember, anticipation wise for me anyway, in a long time in Bellator. Maybe the rematch of Chandler and Alvarez. Maybe I'm forgetting something, but
the only one I can think of, and it wasn't a great fight, was Mousasi versus Lima. That was the one I was looking forward to an awful lot. I thought that'd be a good fight, but
well, there's more to this fight for me. Like the amount of questions we're going to have answered about AJ McKee as well. Just it's really hard to know how this fight's going to look and how it's going to go, and I'm just really looking forward to it. Hopefully, it can stay together as well. Like, obviously, this is for the hardcores, this is a fight that everybody's going to be watching. This is definitely a huge fight, and for AJ McKee, if he can remain undefeated and beat Patricky Pitbull and be the champion in Bellator, it's going to be hard to dislodge him from there.
Patricio Pitbull, even. Yeah, no, that reminds me of
sorry.
Patricky Pitbull is fighting Peter Queally coming up. That fight is back on again. So I believe that's on the James Galler Apache Mix card, which is on the same card as the title fight in that division as well, if I'm not 100% mistaken. But those fights are all definitely happening anyway, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. But yeah, this is the best fight Bellator can put on. And it's weird because I was watching just the start of the fight last night, just as they were kind of coming out and stuff. And people always ask or have asked like 4 or 5 times before in the Q&A, like, oh, how do you pick who you root for in fights? And and I've always been very, very, even before I started covering MMA, because I kind of came into the sport as someone who likes the sport more than like a single fighter. And a lot of people came in and they liked, Chuck, or they like Lesnar, or they like Rousey, or they like McGregor, and they've been kind of a diehard fan like that. I kind of started as, someone who loves the sport. So I very rarely watch fights and go, I hope this guy wins, or I hope this lady wins, or whatever way it might be. But watching that fight last night, and nothing against Emmanuel Sanchez or anything, but I was like, fuck it, I hope Pitbull wins just because I want to see the AJ McKee fight. And that was the only reason. I wasn't like, hoping, that Emmanuel Sanchez gets hurt or that Emmanuel Sanchez doesn't win or anything. But like, I really, really wanted to see that fight. And I was like, don't put it off and don't, let it happen further down the line. If Sanchez versus McKee would be a good fight, absolutely. But we just needed that fight, and we're getting it. And as you said, for Bellator, it's. Look, I saw a lot of people saying it's lucky and it came together. It's not. They designed it this way and it came off. So absolutely fair play to them. Must give huge credit to Bellator for that. Before we get into the rest of the card, here is the kind of the...
You can talk about the TV deal,
Oh, God. Oh, no. I don't want to. I actually don't want to. Oh, God. So... So the Bellator TV deal, so look, we've talked about the iPlayer thing before, where it is on a stream in the UK, and if it was on BBC One or BBC Two, it'd absolutely be huge. But either way, it's on a stream. It'd be better if it was on YouTube or on somewhere else. It's grand on, no problem. People in the UK can watch it. I know there was one or two issues with it last night, but nothing major. I talked to a few people and they said, yeah, once I got it on, it was working 1080p or whatever it was for the whole thing, absolutely perfect. So no issues with that. Look, they're blown way out of proportion what it is. So we talked about that before. If you want to listen to that, we did a mini Patreon about it, and we did another one this week about the Virgin deal as well in Ireland. But the issue last night with this card, and I saw a few people asking me, but I'm not going on too much of a rant about this, right? Because my reasoning behind this, I've done it for years and done it, we've talked about it enough. And I think at this stage, people are Bellator fans in Ireland for two reasons, right? They tune in for Crosby, Queally, Gallagher, Franz Malambo, Paul Redmond, although Paul Redmond's not even in Bellator anymore, but you know what I mean, the Irish people. Sinead Kavanagh, which we might get to in a few minutes as well, but those fights are probably going to be on Virgin Media too, so that's perfect. No trouble with that, right? Grand. And the other people who watch Bellator are like dirty, rotten hardcores like us. So if you're a dirty, rotten hardcore like us, you know how to get Bellator, right? So I'm not going to point it out for you. We know, you know how to get, we've had for long enough, we've known how to get Bellator. Or I'm sure the next morning, if you want to get Bellator and you didn't bother signing up for it, you can get it, right? So there's
if you're any kind of MMA fan, you've kind of had to learn these things. There's no
like, have you for the last few years? If you're only an MMA fan in say the McGregor era, there hasn't been that much. Okay, Bellator maybe a while back, and it's not that long ago, but like there are
a lot of people don't have BT Sports Package. It is very expensive for what it is. If you're not a soccer fan, if you're not a football fan, it's pretty. It's not great. Yeah. So a lot of people who are just MMA fans maybe don't want to pay that, and recent fans maybe a lot of them maybe. But as you said, over the years, if you wanted to watch shows, you needed to be able to find these websites.
yeah. So like the Bellator for years, and maybe not now as much, but Bellator for years forced people to do that because it wasn't on anywhere. You could not get it. The only way to watch Bellator live is to stream it illegally. It was the only way to do it. Now, I never did that personally. I always flew to America, and I know you did as well, Graeme, and we watched it over there. But with coronavirus now, that's not possible. So, where the event was last night and going forward, where I'm sure a lot of events are going to be, hopefully apart from the ones with the Irish people on them, it was Virgin Media Sport. So Virgin Media Sport is available to people who already have a Virgin Media account, mostly people who have either Virgin Broadband or Virgin Media TV. Now, I live in one of the biggest towns in Ireland, the biggest town in the third biggest county in Ireland, and Virgin Media is not available here. So someone told me they had a 25% market share, Virgin Media, for broadband or something like that. So, how many of those people have the sport? How many people are going to be watching Bellator? How many people are going to be staying up at 3 a.m.? There's a very, very, very small audience for this, of people who can actually even get it. Now, I talked to Virgin again yesterday, and they told me there is a package which you can get, which anyone in the country can get, even though I went into the website and they told me I can't get it, but apparently it was an issue with the website, that costs €20 a month for the Sports Anywhere pack. Now, that is basically just Bellator, because the Champions League is on that. Someone told me they're losing the Champions League rights, or the rights are coming up, and the Champions League rights are free anyway if you have Virgin Media 2, which everyone in the country has. So you're basically paying €20 a month for Bellator, unless you're in the middle of a big city where you can get the Virgin broadband and get it on the cheaper rate or for free, I think, with some packages. So this is basically, for someone like me, or for other people as well, it's impossible to get. Like, you literally, you either pay €20 a month, or for some people in some areas you can't even get it. It's just a terrible, terrible deal when it's on Virgin Media Sports. Now, when it's on Virgin Media 2, and last night on Virgin Media 2 at 2 a.m, there was teleshopping on. There was nothing. There was literally fucking blank screen on. They could have put it there, but they decided not to. And now, whose fault is that? Is that Virgin Media or is it Bellator? I would say mostly Virgin Media, but we went through this once before where Bellator were blaming everyone else, and they were like, oh, we've been trying and we want them. So you have to give Bellator a little bit of the blame as well. It's one of those deals that is twinged with a fantastic deal twinged with a terrible deal at the same time. So it depends week in, week out. And I couldn't get an answer for them. I had to fucking send the Virgin Media Twitter a DM to find out where the fucking card was on, and they eventually tweeted it like after the weigh-ins at like 12 o'clock the night before to say if it was on Virgin Media 2 or Virgin Media Sport. Like, that's what you're getting here with Bellator. Now, look, I'm not going to continue going on rants about this. If you want to find Bellator and you don't have Virgin Media Sport, go and fucking find it. You know, basically, I'm not doing their work for them anymore. I'm sick of it down through the years. It's, the Sky deal for me was great. For a lot of people, I know they didn't like it because the Sky is expensive and everything like that, but we just can't go through this again with Bellator. I just don't have the heart for it. I don't have the energy for it anymore. So yeah, look, it's going to be on Virgin Media Sport. Most people are not going to be able to watch it. Probably 7 people watched it last night on Virgin Media Sport, if we're being honest about it. And because of that, the audience isn't actually that big for it. So why are we putting so much effort into it? And we're doing it because it's the fights, and we'll put it into the fights and stuff. But when we're talking about the broadcast and things like that, it's just not for me. Well, what broadband do you have? Do you have Virgin broadband, or what's the crack?
I don't even know what broadband provider it is. I think it probably is Virgin, but
I can get a free. Send us
out
your sign in there.
I'm not sure what it is, to be honest.
You can't get Virgin Sports and Sky as well. That's another thing.
Yeah,
if you have Sky, you can't get it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty annoying. But as you said, if there was something else on Virgin 2 at that time, some other sporting event or something that's gonna bring viewers rather than telemarketing is, I don't know. It seems like maybe that was paid for in advance or something, and that's slot or whatever, and they can't change it or whatever. But going forward, if they have nothing on, I don't see why they wouldn't put Bellator on. Like, live sport is one of the only things that people will actually tune into TV for live. Mm-hmm. Won't just DVR or Sky Plus or whatever. Yeah, so that's strange. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because it's all kind of already arranged, and maybe going forward they'll be able to show more on Virgin, the Virgin channels that most people actually have. So it could end up working out if that happens. That seems to be common sense to me and to most people. But for
Virgin as well, though, if you have nothing on at 3 o'clock, why wouldn't you put on Bellator?
Yeah. People will tune in for live sport. That's pretty much people aren't going to tune in for. Well, maybe some people are addicted to telemarketing or something. But I don't see that being much of an audience. You know what I mean?
And they can, people will record it and watch it in the morning as well, which I know a lot of people do with Bellator. But with Friday night fights as well. Let's say you have your fucking whatever show is, like Emmerdale or EastEnders or whatever the fuck they have on TV3, and you put Bellator tonight, it's starting at 11 o'clock, you watch it on BT Sports or Virgin Media too. Like, lads on a Friday night, you know, are going to send the missus and the kids off to bed and go, right, I'm watching this, and maybe they'll fall asleep watching it. And look, it doesn't matter to Virgin Media, they still get their their viewer. But people are going to do that because a Friday night is a great time for MMA in Ireland or in the UK, because people are willing to stay up a little bit later on a Friday night because they're not going to be wrecked on a Sunday and then wrecked on a Monday. It's just a little bit easier and a little bit better. So, like, it's just all the time. They always do the wrong thing. Like, Bellator, they just do the wrong thing so much and have the wrong deal, and it feels like they're just happy to get on anywhere. And there's, I don't know. But anyway, I'm finished with it. I'm not talking about it anymore. Probably will, but, you know, we'll leave it. We'll park it there. Let's get down through the rest of this card. So, Graeme, Jason Jackson versus Neiman Gracie. My boy, Team Sheehan, Jason Jackson, with a fantastic win here. Absolutely no doubt about it. Didn't scrape by, didn't get kind of a little bit lucky on the judges' cards and all, but he deserved this one. The whole thing about this fight is right.
Do you think he actually did deserve it, though? I actually think he did. I did as well. I thought the first and the third were his. The first was very, very, very close, but I think John McCarthy kind of might have swayed a lot of people. Yeah. You know, he's a very respectable voice, and he's, you know, I know that about it, fucking Gracie Round or whatever. Yeah, I thought, like, at the time when he said that, I was like, really? Yeah, I don't know about that. Maybe I'll rewatch that round. I haven't rewatched it, but at the time I had it the other way. Like, I wasn't paying, you know, I wasn't watching to score it, and I haven't gone back and watched it. I was just watching it to enjoy it and, like, you know, see what was going to happen. But I thought he actually won, but obviously, if I go back and watch it, I might have a different opinion.
I think the first round was the clearest round, but the problem with Big John, and like, some people hate Big John's commentary, which I found out on Twitter this week. You can't question his judging commentary. It's absolutely fantastic. But I think here, when we've been at fights like this before, even I don't know if you were there, I think you were, but the Norman Park.
Well, you
Gamrot
can question
fight.
it. You can question it because he's saying it's a definite round for Gracie. Yeah, but it's not.
My point here is, right, this was a fight where, okay, so if people didn't watch it, Jason Jackson was like in the middle of a scramble with Neiman Gracie, and he hit his eye/face off the cage and like tore it along the cage.
Cheese grated his eye.
Cheese grated his eye, and it was very sore looking. And he basically kind of stopped fighting, and he was like to the ref and to Gracie, he's like, my face is, I need the doctor or whatever, you know. And they let the fight go on. And then Gracie kind of got into the mount.
Took the back.
Yeah, or something like that, yeah. And then they got the...
Didn't get close.
No, it didn't get close any. But they got the... So my point is, before we got to the scoring round, they got the referee in, and there was a big hoopla, and they spent like a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, like talking about, oh no, he's hurt, is the fight going to end, is whatever's happening. And I feel like when you're there live, especially because I've been in that position before, you kind of lose track of what happened before. And John McCarthy's on the mic and he's talking about it and he's like doing analysis of what's going on. It's a mad situation there. If you're just a referee, okay, a different story. Or if you're just a judge, a different story. But when you're commentating on it, you're trying to look at it, you're trying to judge it all at the same time from John McCarthy's point of view. I would definitely let him away with that one. I know, look, it wasn't the most clear round ever, but look, for John McCarthy to say that, and I think they want him to give a score after every round, and he's kind of forced to give a score. I'd say if you watch that back again, though, he'd definitely give it to Jackson. Like, Jackson landed way more shots on the feet at the start. The thing as well with that one where he got hurt against the cage, the referee didn't call that as a foul. So if you're a judge, you have to call the effect of that as a Neiman Gracie kind of strike or whatever. But
he kind of did it to himself, though. No, he kind of instead of putting his hand out, he put his hand to try and fight Gracie's hands, and kind of and then kind of forced his own face. It was kind of a strange one, you know. He kind of did it to himself. Yeah, it was. Look, I think anyway though, like he did that. Gracie was moving around. He didn't get near to a submission. Basically, didn't land any strikes. The fight got back up to the feet, and Jackson hit him 3 or 4 times again. Like, If you scored him hit himself against the cage as like a near fight ending thing, which it kind of was, I suppose, maybe you can see it for Gracie, but other than that, I think he won it. And for the rest of the fight, for the whole fight, like, I know you're not supposed to score it this way, and it's a 10-9-1 system and all, or 10-point-1 system, but if you look at Neiman Gracie, or think back on that fight, did he get close to the submission once? No.
did he land a big shot at any stage during that whole 15 minutes? I would say no as well. Like,
when they pulled up the significant strikes, I was like, what? Yeah. That's not what happened. Who's counting them?
Yeah, but it probably was. He was probably like hitting him in, from the bottom and hitting him in the legs and stuff. Those strike stats are fucking ridiculous. Like, it's
poking him in the ribs.
Yeah, it's just stupid. But yeah, look, I think if you look at that first minute and a half of that fight, or however long it was before he cheese grated his face off the cage, Jason Jackson was going to walk that fight. I genuinely think he was going to knock him out in the first maybe 4 or 5 minutes. He was just a different level. Neiman Gracie couldn't really take him down or get it to the ground or anything. And then,
do you think he engaged a little bit too much though? Yeah, I think so. Like, he did well, like, in taking him down, but he was always kind of in jeopardy there, and obviously got stuck in like a leg triangle from the bottom in the last round, and I don't know. I think if he had kept it on the feet, he probably, would have had a good chance at the finish.
Yeah, it was probably his worst performance in recent fights, but he goes on and he gets the win anyway, and he called for a title shot. I'd love to see him fight MVP. I think Scott Coker said last night they're doing a welterweight title fight, and Jason Jackson won't be part of it. So does that mean they're doing Lima versus MVP or what? I know the Bellator rankings came out. I don't have them in front of me at the moment, but I don't know what else is going to. I know what's his name, Yankolev or whatever his name is. The other lad is around there as well. Maybe he's getting in it, but yeah, looking forward. Actually, we're on like the whole madness of the stuff as well. Did you see your man losing his finger the other day over in CFFC?
Oh yeah, fuck's sake! Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, so if people that have been living under a rock, there was a CFFC fight. The guy got his hand kicked, and he immediately went to his hand. And he's like, "Oh fuck!" And he was, sometimes when you see guys get broken hands or stuff, they kind of catch it, and he was doing that, and he kind of, he could kind of feel it, and the round ended, and he went back to his corner. And then they were like, oh yeah, grand. And he came out and he fought again. But then the fight went to the ground, and his opponent pulled the glove up over the broken finger, which pulled the finger into the glove and forced it back. Now it looked, the picture when it showed it after the second round, when they got back to the corner, when the fight was stopped, it looked like the finger was gone. It looked like the finger was severed because it was like a compound fracture, and you could see the bottom half of the bone inside. We're gonna be an expletive podcast on SoundCloud after this. But anyway, and from that point on, they didn't know where the finger was. They were like, where's his finger gone? It was stuck in the glove. You couldn't really see it. And they didn't actually know it was there until they got back to the hospital afterwards. The CFFC president came on the broadcast, and he was like, oh, we know where the finger is. We have it. And everyone was looking for his finger and stuff. But I don't think he knew, and he kind of came on the broadcast. It was kind of bullshitting his way. But they went back. There's a great video of it up from the CFFC on their YouTube, where they cut off the glove, and you see the finger kind of coming out. It's not as bad as it sounds, I don't think. It was a bad compound fracture, and obviously a horrendous injury, but his finger was still on. They were able to put it back into place. They were able to sew it back on. So it wasn't, he didn't get a severed finger. He got a broken finger, and it was a nasty, nasty injury. But I think he'll be okay.
Really badly broken finger.
Yeah, terribly broken finger. But I think he'd be okay. I think it's not one of these things where I don't think he'll ever fight again or anything like that. And look, if you go from severed finger to broken finger,
Sean Sheehan reacts to severed finger, merely a flesh wound.
Not that bad. That was a weird thing. I think we're so fucking conditioned to madness in MMA now. I saw a fucking badly broken finger. I was like, oh, good. Not too bad, sure. Be grand, but yeah.
Could have been worse.
Could have been worse. He could have lost his hand. But yeah, fair play to him anyway. Right, run through the rest of this Bellator cards. Tyrell Fortune went out, took Jack May down and beat the shit out of him.
Did you enjoy the Mayday on the commentary?
Yeah. It wasn't the best, was it? They had one good Easter, he came back from nowhere or something like that. So that was pretty good. But yeah, not great. I like. Oh yeah, what do you think as well about Goldberg? Speaking of commentary, they're after getting rid of Goldberg, which this is pure speculation. I have no insight or anything, but I would guess that's a Showtime thing. I would guess Showtime would not want to Mike Goldberg on their TV screens, and probably would want Mauro Ronaldo because they have him for the boxing, everything like that. What do you think of Goldie being gone?
Yeah, I don't know. He doesn't really bring much to the broadcast. I know he's like been around for a long time. A lot of people like him, but I was very sick of him by the time he left the UFC. To be honest, so I don't know. Marinello's a bit hit and miss. Sometimes he can be very good. I think obviously Showtime like him. He's already there. It does make sense. Maybe they. I don't know. Maybe they'll bring Goldberg back for other shows, but I don't think so. I don't think he brings much to the broadcast. I don't think there's any real reason to bring him back.
Yeah,
it might sound harsh, but it is what it is.
When he left the UFC, I was like, no, I'm gonna miss him and stuff. And I've always liked Anik, and I like the new guys they brought in. But as the kind of years went on, and as he's been in Bellator, I'm kind of like, I don't mind Goldberg, because Goldberg, he actually kind of stays quiet and lets the co-commentator speak a lot during the fights himself, so I don't have much problem with him during the fights. It's kind of outside of the fights, he's very cartoonish and stuff, but we're used to him, I think, as MMA fans, so it's not that bad. And you can get a lot worse than Mike Goldberg, so I'm sad to see him go in one way, because who are they going to bring in and how bad is it going to be? But if it's Mauro for all the fights, that's definitely an upgrade from Bellator, or from Goldberg, I think. Now, a lot of people don't like Mauro as well, but sure, look, a lot of people don't like me either, but sure, look, these things happen in MMA. The one thing about Goldberg, though, I will say, if he is gone, and if this is it for Mike Goldberg, hashtag MMA retirements, I've never met someone, and I met Goldberg, and I know a lot of the lads were kind of talking to him around, and because he's been in Ireland a lot, due to Bellator being here a few times. I've never met someone who loves MMA and their place in MMA as much as Mike Goldberg. Like, Mike Goldberg absolutely loves being Mike Goldberg. I remember we were inside the pub one time, and an unnamed lad was there, and he had a few drinks in him, right? And he was like, "Well, I go over and say hello to Goldberg," and we were like, "No, let him alone now. He's having a few drinks with his friends or his family or whoever was there with him."
Name him.
No, not people probably get it. He'd probably name himself, but we were like, no. And then he was like, all right, I won't bother. And then like an hour later, after like 4 or 5 more pints, he went out to the toilet, and on the way back in, he went up to Goldberg, and like, he started talking to him. We were like, oh shit, I hope he's not annoying him or anything. And like, I walked out then afterwards, or up to get a drink or something, and like, Goldberg was like holding him in to keep him talking, to like talk about MMA and talk about stuff down through the years. Like, he absolutely loved it. And Goldberg staying around for like fucking 5 or 6 hours talking to fans and just having the crack with people around the place. And like, I noticed that every time I saw him at events, and every time, people would go up to him and stuff, he loved it, and he had time for everyone. And, a lot of people can say what they want about Mike Goldberg and him being a little bit annoying and stuff, but he seems like a nice lad to people who have never met him before, and he loves it. He absolutely loves it. So, Mike Goldberg kind of went up in my estimation after seeing him around the place. So, I'm sad for the man himself, because he seems like a nice lad, but sure, look, these things happen in MMA, Graeme, as they say, as broken fingers, people getting, fucking cheese grated against cages, people getting sacked. It just happens. It just happens. Yeah, anyway, Usman Nurmagomedov, Marty Nurmagomedov, as I started to call him, against Mike Hamill. Mike Hamill was like the perfect opponent for Marty. He was like, he came forward, he walked into all his punches, he got taken down a couple of times, he didn't pose that much of like a power risk to him. Marty got tired, and I'm going to continue calling him Marty because it's funny. He got very tired, I thought, in the third round, which is something that you can kind of look at going forward for him if he's going to be fighting 5-round fights and things like that. But that pace that Hamill set was a big pace. He had unbelievable cardio, took a lot of damage, looked strong the whole way through as well, but got absolutely destroyed by Nurmagomedov here. What did you think of Usman Nurmagomedov, Graeme?
Yeah, like you said, it was a nice style matchup there for him. He definitely looks like he's a good fighter, but we're gonna have to see a much higher level of competition before we can really see where he's at. But for what for the guy that's in front of him, he dominated everywhere and easily won a decision. But as you say, it's not really the as you said, it's not really the toughest test he's faced or he's going to face.
Yeah, I'm going to say something about an Nurmagomedov that's probably never been said about an Nurmagomedov before, but he needs to add in a little bit more wrestling, I think. I don't think he wrestles enough. He loves his striking, and they said that in the commentary as well, that he rather striking than wrestling, but I think if he added in a few takedowns and a bit of ground and pound...
Maybe he's trying to develop, his game outside of wrestling, and he thinks he can always fall back on that as he, needs to as he goes up the rankings, but... just because he has a Nurmagomedov name doesn't mean that he's going to be a completely dominant wrestler. Maybe it's a case that he's not on the level wrestling wise, but I suspect it's more of a trying to get time in other realms of the game in while he's coming up.
Yeah, they said on the broadcast that he started off more as a striker. In fucking Dagestan they have boxing and Muay Thai and wrestling. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. So, he kind of...
So there's no bears in his childhood.
Fake bears that didn't actually happen. Remember, probably not. Yeah, but I thought he was good. My whole thing about the wrestling is if he had added in 2 takedowns in that fight in the first 2 rounds, I don't think he would have got as tired as he looked in the 3rd round. And if you are looking at your future career, you're going to be coming up against guys like this, especially in Bellator. They have a lot of tough nosed guys who will keep coming for days. I think that's something he needs to adjust a little bit. But a very good performance. He's lovely straight shots, lovely kicks to the body. I thought he was going to land a flying knee against Mike Hamill just because he was so open for it, and he he didn't try a standing knee, but it was like he stepped in out of the orthodox position into his favourite southpaw position and lifted the right knee up, and it came up and hit Hamill at one side. You're like, oh, he nearly landed it there. But he has all the shots. He's very, very good, and looking forward to seeing what he does next. And he's one of those lads as well. At 12-0, you can definitely see adjustments that can be made. So a very, very good prospect. After a Kana Watanabe in a close fight against Alejandra Lara, split decision in that one. Pretty fun fight, not the highest level of MMA, I wouldn't say, but Watanabe goes to 10-0, so she's right thereabouts at 125 pounds.
Faced some adversity in the first round as well. Got hit with a few shots, lost the first round, and managed to come back and win on all cards. So
landed rock bottom.
Good. Landed a rock bottom, went full pro wrestling in the middle of it. So it's a good fight, a good learning curve as you're coming up. Wasn't the best fight, but yeah. No,
not fantastic. Magomedov though against CJ Hamilton, he I've talked a lot about Magomedov and over the last few weeks after Petr Yan fought and things, and I think did I do him on a rewatch? I think I did. Maybe I didn't, or maybe I just went back and watched it, but I watched these 2 fights against Petr Yan anyway, and this guy is legit, moves to 18-1 now, and that only loss is to Petr Yan, who he also beat. His wrestling is just brilliant. Now, his striking is not the best still in the world. I think he's improved his jiu-jitsu a lot, but his wrestling is just so good, and he's just so relentless. I thought CJ Hamilton did well in the first round, just to kind of wrestle with him and to transition with him, but he just wore him down. That big suplex towards the end of the first round, I think just told CJ Hamilton's you can only transition for so long before you get fucking decapitated here. And Magomedov managed to do that in the second round with the rear naked choke. Just a fantastic win. Are you as high in him as I am, Graeme?
Yeah, well, I think you talked about his record there. His only loss against Yan, who he has a win over. So, you can't really argue with that. He comes in, destroys CJ Hamilton, who, as you said, he's another kind of tough-nosed, all-go guy. And, he did his very best, but he was just completely outclassed. And I don't think there was much doubt about it going in who was going to win that fight. And I think, the sky's the limit for Magomedov here. I'd love to see the Petr Yan fight again, but he's in Bellator. Selfishly, I always want to see all these guys, fight the best guys. But in terms of Bellator's rankings, he's going to be a big problem for the 135-pound division. He's absolutely brilliant. Yeah,
and I see he's ranked below James Gallagher in the ranking, so that'd be a fun fight. But it's a fucking tough fight for James Gallagher. Tough fight for
very
anyone.
Tough fight. Yeah,
tough fight for anyone.
Yeah, I wouldn't be campaigning for that fight.
Yeah, I'd be like, I might move to 145.
I don't think anybody in Bellator is going to be campaigning for Magomedov.
They'd be like, leave him alone. Let him do his own devices there. But we're very good win. Mandel got the first round Superman punch win as well. Khalid Murazayev got a win. Chris Gonzalez got a submission to strikes. That was against Roger Huerta. Yeah, so Roger Huerta came out and lost the first 2 rounds. Then came out and was winning the 3rd round. Got taken down, gave up his back, I believe, ate 1 or 2 shots and then tapped to strikes. And I think, look, this is one of those things, as a person who would never have the balls to ever fight again, I'm like, this is a smart thing to do. You know, he lost the first 2 rounds. It was only going to get worse here. There was 2 minutes left in the 3rd round. But I guarantee you, maybe they won't say it, or maybe they'll hear me saying it and they'll give out about me. But I guarantee you, there's fighters talking about this and they're like, he gave up. He threw in the towel on himself and he gave up in the last couple of minutes of this fight. And it's one of those things like where I think it's a smart thing to do to give up in that situation. But he definitely gave up. What did you think of this fight, Ian Graeme?
Yeah, like, he's been around a long time. He was kind of like a big prospect in the UFC a long time ago, and he probably, knows his body's not really doing, or he's not able to do what he was able to do in the past. And, he came in 3rd round and kind of gave it his all, and it wasn't enough. And, he did just, there's no doubt about it. He just, said, okay, I'm done, gave up. But as you said, it seemed to be only going one way, and he seemed to know that. Once he kind of gave it his all, and it didn't work out, I think he knew he was just going to eat damage. So like from a fighter safety and future point of view, it was a very good decision. But it's a rare decision. We talk about corners not throwing in the towel or not calling it off. It's even more rare to see a fighter tap out like that. Sometimes you see a guy that's just overwhelmed and just eating strike after strike after strike and taps out because the ref doesn't stop it. But this was different. This was a guy who knew he was done. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the end of him. That's how, he probably came to a realization that he's not up to it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of Chris Lieben that time. I know Chris came back because everyone comes back in MMA, but Rogers had this a couple of times before.
GSP came back pretty well from it, against Matt Serra.
Well, yeah, but that's different. I think tapping the strikes is a different thing to tapping the fucking no strikes, basically. But look. And the other 3 fights then, I was actually flying to America to watch the card during these, but Jose Augusto Aviedo won, Roman Fernaldo won, and Jordan Newman got a good win as well to go to 3-0. He's a really top wrestling prospect there, so good night all around for Bellator. As well, before we move on, they announced Chris Cyborg versus Leslie Smith, and I see Sinead Kavanagh today is not too happy about it. Hold on, let me just have a quick look at the tweet you sent me there earlier on. Utter horseshit, swift kick to the face, Cyborg punch bag for the night. So Sinead Kavanagh's not holding back much there. It's a ridiculous fight to make, to be honest. Like, especially when you have someone like Sinead Kavanagh who is a new legit challenger for Cyborg. Now,
if they could do it in Ireland, do you think it would have happened?
That's a fair point, yeah, because they've talked about that before, and I believe Coker when he says that. So maybe they're waiting and trying to get a fight, but like there's going to be no fights in Ireland for next year, and I can't see that.
Yeah, but that will be a very big fight. Cyborg is a name that transcends hardcore MMA. Yeah. And an Irish woman going in there, people could get behind that. It could get TV coverage. It could be a big event in the 3 Arena. That's probably what they're thinking there. Obviously, it's just up in the air with the pandemic. Like, it's been going on for so long. People are talking about the vaccines fixing things, but I don't know how quickly that's going to be. And for Sinead, obviously, she wants to go in there and fight for the title or fight Cyborg, and she's obviously disappointed. But in terms of Bellator, I think it makes sense not to do it in the pandemic.
Yeah, it's a tough one because if you're waiting for that and you're waiting on Ireland, you'll be fucking waiting. Maybe you can wait in America because they seem to be doing a great job with the vaccines, and same in the UK and stuff. But Ireland, or like if you're living outside of Ireland and you don't know, like we've been promised vaccines and they say, 70% are going to get their first vaccine by June and stuff. Bullshit. That's never going to fucking happen. So like Ireland are in this for a long haul, and I can't see big events like that happening for, till at least this time next year, to be honest. So I don't know, like this fight, she just beat Leslie Smith so easily the first time, and it was a little bit of an early stoppage, I think, but everyone knew which way it was going. She was just destroying her, and when there is a fresh matchup there, which people were calling for, which Cyborg herself has mentioned, which Sinead Kavanagh wants and she's called for years, you just make that fight. I think, look, if they want to wait for Ireland and see, fine, but I don't know. This fight just does nothing for anyone, I don't think. Leslie Smith is just going to get destroyed again. Cyborg is going to pick up another easy win, and look, I suppose if you want to move it on like that, fair enough. But I'm
if they give Sinead a nice matchup, send her in there, get her a payday, and then a Virgin Media deal. This could be on like a lot of homes, could be covered on the equivalent of TV3, what used to be TV3, like is available in pretty much all homes. So, I can understand why they're waiting. And I think if they had shows planned in Ireland and they gave it to Leslie Smith, it would be an outrage. But it's like, nobody wants to see that again, really. But, under the circumstances, if that's the reasoning, then it makes sense to me. But with Bellator, maybe it's not the reasoning. Who knows?
Who knows with Bellator is always, I guess. But
who knows at UFC? Who knows at any promotion?
Yeah, it's true. Right, let's quickly break down a few of the cards because we're running out of time here. But ONE FC have a big card this weekend. I actually don't know where it's on. I must look it up. But anyway, Demetrius Johnson is fighting Adriano Moraes for the ONE Bantamweight Championship, and Eddie Alvarez is back as well, fighting Yuri Lapicus, who is 14-1 as well. It's always fun to see Demetrius Johnson back, and I did a rewatch with him this week. One of his recent fights over in ONE FC, and he looked good. He still looks the way he used to look. I know his opponent at the weekend, I'm looking through his record, he doesn't really have any standout names of people that we do know, but when you become the champion over there, you are fighting some good guys and things like that, and this fight was supposed to happen around this time last year, so it's happening now. And I think the plan when Demetrius Johnson went over there was to become the champion at this 135 pounds weight class, which is a weird non-weight cutting one. I don't know what they're doing over there, but it's always fun to see Demetrius Johnson back, isn't it, Graeme? And it's fun to see Eddie Alvarez back as well. He's been, you mentioned him earlier on, he's been a fun fighter around the place for years, and, fighting Lapicus, who fought Christian Ian and lost a first round knockout in his last fight, but has some good wins before that. It's good to see the two of them on the card, and a good card for ONE FC to kind of pop back with, I suppose, and Rug as well on this card. And I'm looking forward to it if we can watch it.
If we can watch it, yeah. I always love watching Demetrius Johnson fight. He's just obviously one of, if not the best fighter in the world. Like, he's so well rounded. He's, he, obviously because he's small, he's super quick. But these guys are super quick, but he's extra quick. Some of the things he did in fights, like what was it, that like kind of suplex armbar?
Yeah, mousetrap.
Yeah, the mousetrap. He's just he's just extremely top level guy, and he's always in, a lot of people don't like the lighter weight guys, maybe because they can't get finishes as much or they can't hit as hard. But, Demetrius Johnson is always entertaining. He finishes when he can, he's going for finishes with 1 second to go and getting them, he's a joy to watch, really. Obviously the level of competition, kind of obscurity in ONE FC isn't good, isn't ideal at all. But hopefully one day he can come back to the UFC, because I'd love to see it. Like, Figueiredo versus DJ would be absolutely brilliant. I'd love it. Like, but maybe it wouldn't sell because, as I said, a lot of people aren't into it. But if you could put that as a co-main event on a really big card, that'd be absolutely brilliant. I'd love to see that. But obviously he's in ONE FC for the moment. I saw some quotes that he has no plans to go back to North America, but he said he never ruled it out. We'll see what happens in the future. So, that's kind of lighter language than he's used before. So maybe he's coming around to maybe wanting to come back to relevance.
Yeah, I'd love to see it, to be honest. I don't know. I feel like Demetrius Johnson is one of these guys who will just retire one day and we'll never see him again. He seems to be happy enough with his life. I don't think he's earned that much money in the world, so he'd probably have to go and get a job or go and work somewhere, but it's, he's just such a great fighter, and I'll always watch Demetrius Johnson fight, and I'll always beat the Demetrius Johnson bandwagon. He's just,
do we know how much ONE FC are paying him? Or do they release their...
Apparently they pay him well, but I don't know, you'd never know at ONE FC. They just pull numbers out of the fucking anywhere. But they have big money though, ONE FC. They have big investment, an investment that's never going to go anywhere, but they do have that big investment, so I'm sure he's getting paid pretty well. So yeah, hopefully he is, and he absolutely deserves it. Knowing the history of the sport has deserved it more. And we talked a lot about Jones and Ngannou, and we won't get into that again now because we'll be here all day. But yeah, look, I'm looking forward to Demetrius Johnson. It's actually a big week in the world of MMA. There's lots of cards. Bellator 256 as well next Friday. Ryan Bader versus Lyoto Machida. Liz Carmouche is back. Jeremy Kennedy versus Adam Borix. Kat Sungano is back, which if she wins that, or even if she loses it, I think Sinead Kavanagh will probably be calling that name maybe. Julia Budd as well is fighting here. Maybe that's another name that Sinead Kavanagh might be looking against. Diana Silva. Dina Avsagarova, which is one of Bellator's big stars from over in Russia, is fighting Tara Graf. And there's some other people as well on the card here. So not a bad fight at all. I suppose the Ryan Bader Lyoto Machida fight, the rematch, if I'm not mistaken, then that's the one where like Bader waded in and Lyoto just caught him with a right hand inside and knocked him out. This is the 205 pounds tournament. Is it a tournament? I don't know. Maybe. I think, is it? I don't know. But yeah, it is World Grand Prix quarterfinal. Ryan Bader is still the fucking... Isn't Ryan Bader still the heavyweight champion? Yeah, and he just entered another light heavyweight tournament even though he lost his title, which is a bit odd. But you're looking forward to Bader versus Machida?
Yeah, well, it's a good fight. It's not, I don't know, I think... in the first fight, I think Machida was able to kind of feint and kind of stifle and frustrate Bader, and he just kind of ended up, as you said, rushing in and getting cleaned out. Mm-hmm. I don't think he'll do that again, I think he's a better fighter than he was there. He's more composed. Machida's a little slower, a little older. I think it's a much closer fight than the odds would indicate. Like, Bader's basically 3-1 on favourite. I don't agree with that, but I probably lean Bader.
Yeah, I think Bader's a lot better of a fighter now. I think he's a very, very good fighter. And look, we'll see how it goes, I suppose. But yeah, look, not a bad card. And looking at this UFC card next Saturday, this looks like a fucking fantastic card. So Marvin Vettori is supposed to fight Darren Till in the main event. That has obviously been cancelled. Darren Till broke his collarbone, if I'm not mistaken. So he's out of that fight. And Kevin Holland steps in. So the main event, two of probably the most unlikable guys in the UFC from, up against each other, which is like an interesting one, I suppose. But two people that people know. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that one. I have come around a lot to Vettori's ability in the last while, and I think he'll probably win it here, especially from the dud of a performance that Kevin Holland put in his fight a couple of weeks ago. So look, who do you think will win the fight? Do you think Vettori as well?
I think Vettori on the feet should be able to win it here. Like, short notice isn't great for Kevin Holland, but even if it wasn't short notice, I'd still be picking Vettori. I think he's just a more accomplished fighter all around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's a little bit better. I love the co-main event, if it is the co-main event. Ireland Allen versus Sadiq Youssef. Allen 16-1, Youssef 11-1.
Yeah, it's hard to know how this fight. Yeah,
I haven't a clue.
Look, what's gonna happen? Like, I don't know. It's a very interesting one. It's a really close one. Could go either way. Like, I think Arnold Allen's kind of quietly underrated outside of England. Like, I think in the UK. And this kind of scene around UK and Ireland, I think everybody's been, watching him and knows what he can do. But maybe because he's a quiet guy, unassuming, doesn't really say much, controversial, headline-worthy things that you can make clickbait out of. I think, but I think Youssef as well. Like, Jesus, this is a really interesting fight.
Great fight. This is like one of those fights where maybe people don't know how good these two lads are, and they should know, because it's going to be really, really good. And for me, I think Sadiq Youssef is a fantastic fighter. And I don't know who I'm going to pick, but I feel like Arnold Allen is maybe the most underrated or underappreciated fighter in the world. He is that good. He's really, really good. And, you said he doesn't talk that much. You don't hear from him that much. He was actually on Blake Harrison's podcast this week. He was Neil from the In-Betweeners, and he started a MMA podcast, and it's very good, actually. I listened to a couple of episodes, but he was on it this week. So maybe even, doing that and getting on his social media and stuff, and people will tune in to see him and maybe like him a bit more. That might help him a little bit as well, getting kind of that kind of kick up from there. And I know he'll probably be around in other places as well, so that sort of stuff might help Arnold, and especially if he wins here, and especially if he goes on to the next level, because he's not that far away from that top of that division at all, and he probably should be closer based on his record. But that's a brilliant fight, and I really can't wait for that. There's some other very good fights as well in this. Ali Khizrov, who's 13-0 with the Russian flag on him, so he's going to be good, against Kyle Daukaus, 10-1, so that's a fun fight. Sam Alvey is amazingly still in the UFC, and back against Julian Marquez. Nina Ansaroff, back after having a baby not that long ago, against someone else who had a baby not that long ago. Who's back, Mackenzie Dern. That's a really fun fight. That's a step up for Mackenzie Dern, because Nina Ansaroff looked absolutely fantastic before she obviously had the probably year or 18 months off or whatever it might be after her pregnancy. So we saw with Mackenzie Dern, she didn't look the same for the first fight back after she had the baby, but then she came back and she did well after that. So it's a big, obviously for Ansaroff, being a partner with Amanda Nunes, maybe she has someone there all the time, the best fighter in the history of the sport, they kind of train with, and even if they're in quarantine or whatever, a year ago before she had the baby or she was pregnant. It's a great way to improve, and a great way to be a better fighter, to be 24/7 with the greatest fighter in the history of the sport. So maybe that has helped her kind of stay in good nick as well. But that's a fantastic fight. I'm really looking forward to that one. And if Mackenzie Dern wins that, she's not far away from a title shot either, I don't think. So at 115 pounds, that's a big fight. Mike Perry against Daniel Rodriguez. Mike Perry back after all of his troubles over the last year or so. So a big fight for him as well. If he loses that, I could see the UFC getting rid of him. But Jim Miller back again, Joe Selecki, Scott Holtzman, Matthias Gamrat, Sean Denny represent, Norma Dumont, Aaron Blanchfield, John McDessie is back, Jurgen De Castro, Jack Shore against Hunter Azor. What a fight that is. 13-0 Jack Shore against 9-1 Hunter Azor. An absolutely brilliant fight. Impe Kasangana is back as well, one half of the greatest knockout in the history of MMA. So what a card, up and down. There's a lot of good MMA here over the next week, and I can't wait for it. Actually, before we go as well, we must mention Cage Legacy, which was supposed to happen tonight. Unfortunately, it's not happening. You can look at the Cage Legacy statement. I have it up on my Twitter, and it's up on their Instagram and stuff as well. But look, whatever happened, the event was pulled by the Cage Legacy said it was pulled by the local Garda superintendent. And we can argue over whether it should be in, whether coronavirus, whether they should have been allowed to go ahead with it or anything. But the word initially was that they were, that they had, from politicians and from guards and everyone, that they had said they were allowed to go ahead with it. Now, I know things changed last week, but actually things kind of changed for the better last week in Ireland. They gave people more, room to move, and they were opening things up a little bit and moving in that direction. So the last time they were putting on the card, kind of the opposite happened, and it was always going to get cancelled. But this time I thought, well, maybe. But then it was kind of pulled, and you have to feel very sorry for obviously all the fighters and the coaches and everyone who are. I saw Leon Hill putting up a picture and Palahan and stuff. All those lads had the weight down, and they had prepared, and they had put in a long camp, because it's not just one camp for this fight. There was supposed to be fights at the end of last year, and probably fights in the summer. And, a lot of these lads haven't fought in a year or 18 months. And this is a big blow for them, and a big blow for Irish MMA. There has been some very good times over the last year and 2 and 3 years for Irish MMA. But this is a huge blow for a lot of the amateurs that were supposed to fight in this, and new pros like Palahan and Leon Hill and other guys as well. So and for Cage Legacy, they're the only game in town in the Republic of Ireland. I know there's some in Northern Ireland, but And, we need to protect him, and it would have been great. I think it would have been great support for people if they had gone on pay-per-view and people would have supported them, because Irish MMA fans want to support Irish MMA, whether it's us in the media and our Patreon or them, doing that. But, it's a big blow. It's a big blow, and hopefully they can get it back going again. But I think for Cage Legacy, the best thing to do now is just wait it out, wait till sports can come back in, and until sports can happen behind closed doors in Ireland.
Yeah, I'm sure the expenses they lost will make them think about that. They won't be when you can come so far thinking you're going to be able to do it, and then all of a sudden at the last minute you're overruled and everything you've been told is kind of gone. So yeah, I think it's going to be very difficult for any MMA promotion, and Cage Legacy especially are kind of leading the way at the moment in Ireland. If they can't get a show going, I don't think anybody's going to get a show going until the restrictions are severely or the severity of the restrictions are removed. Yeah, it's fucking. It would have been great for Irish MMA for it to happen, and I think for the fighters, obviously all that as well, but just for the scene in general, it would have been a very good thing, and I think people would have supported it like they always do. It's disappointing, but I was kind of surprised it got so far. I kind of thought it wouldn't happen, and then when I thought, oh, it looks like it is happening, it doesn't happen. So yeah, it's terrible for everybody involved, but it's kind of half expected,
Yeah, it was. Look, it was inevitable, I thought, from far out, but I was the same as you when it came to this week. Because I was thinking of going to it, to cover it, because the reassurances I had got from them was they were going to do it very safely. And I kind of still have my immunity anyway after having it, so I'm like, I'll be grand, so I probably wouldn't have even thought about it a year ago, but it's a pity, because those lads have put in a lot of time, and I speak to Darren Sonic a good bit, and they've put a lot of money and a lot of time into Irish MMA when other people haven't, and other people who get more of, maybe a name in Irish MMA and for leading Irish, they have really led the way in Irish MMA fights over the last while, when there has been nothing apart from, Bellator and Cage Warriors once in the last 10 years or whatever it might be, or 5 years. So it's a very, very tough one. I feel for them, that promotion a lot, and I feel for the fighters obviously as well. So it's a tough one for Irish MMA, but look, Bellator coming back now, and we'll get a lot of the Irish MMA fighters out, and obviously Cage Warriors as well have done a good job, but for the budding Irish MMA fighters, it's a very, very tough one. And speaking to a lot of people in Irish MMA over the last couple of weeks, I think a lot of these fighters have had great preparations for these fights, but great training as well, because there's a lot of one-on-one training going on at the moment, which you usually wouldn't get, or maybe 5-on-1 training, where, if you're there with Chris Fields and he's training you, they can only train in small groups of maybe 4 or 5. So you're getting one-on-one with Tom King or Chris Fields or Andy Ryan or John Kavanagh or whoever it might be in the country training you, where before it might have been 1 in 50 or 1 in 100, on the mats. And I think that could reap huge benefits in the years to come, but I think the lack of fights and the lack of competition, even talking to Andrew and people like that about jiu-jitsu competitions and Muay Thai competitions, all them things help up and coming MMA fighters as well, and with them not there, it's a problem, and it's very, very unfortunate. Look, what can we do? It's no one's fault. It's the pandemic. Well, maybe you can blame fucking Leo Varadkar and Michael Martin or something if you're that way inclined, but yeah, it's a tough time for Irish MMA. But look, we will survive, and we've come through tough times in Irish MMA. Everyone knows over the last few years, and I'm sure it will be back, but not for the moment, unfortunately. All right, everybody, I think that's it. This is the longest podcast we've done in a long time, but there was lots of news, and I like the Saturday podcast. It's fun. We get the evening off now, and we get a Sunday off for the first time in about a year, so I'm looking forward to that. Thank you, Graeme, for being with me today. Thank you to our sponsors Manscaped and FightPicks as well. Go over to manscaped.com, use the promo code SevereMA, and download the FightPicks app. And while you're on the internet, while you're at your browser, go to severema.com/points. For the price of a pint a month, you can sign up to our Patreon and You get loads of content there. Oh, actually as well, we will have another episode of The Chasing Pack this week with myself and Ian O'Neill, so tune in for that. Alright everybody, thank you very much for joining me. Follow me at SeanSheehanBA, Graeme at Severe MMA. Send your questions all week for at Severe MMA Pod. The Q&A will be out on Tuesday morning, likely, as it is every week. And all that's left to do is give the inspirational quote of the week. When life puts you in tough situations, don't say, why me? Say, try me. We'll see you next Tuesday. Or probably Sunday.
Head over to patreon.com/severe MMA podcast to sign up